Welcome back. Some firms are considering extra compensation for staff covering colleagues on childcare leave, among measures to cope with potentially longer absences. It was raised at the National Day rally, with Prime Minister Lawrence Wong adding that parental leave should be extended or could be extended further. Businesses say this could also mean the need to redesign jobs. Nadira Zaidi has more.
This team stepped in to take on a colleague's workload during his 4-month paternity leave. It's a common practice for most businesses instead of hiring extra help.
Certain roles are very specialized, and it's not possible to just go out there and try and bring in a part-time cover or temporary contract staff cover. For example, I'll give you an example, our lactation consultants. It's a very specialized roles. So if I do need to have the couple of lactation consultants that we have at hand cover an existing maternity cover, then obviously that's something that we need to talk about and see how we can make sure a proper stipend is provided for them.
In his National Day rally speech, Prime Minister Lawrence Wong said the government will not rule out extending the current 30 weeks of government-paid parental leave. Firms say longer leave will require more planning to manage manpower gaps. That could mean redesigning jobs and using technology to ease manpower pressures.
I think Singapore is a place where employers do need to think about how to make best use of the workforce that they have, and integrating AI to take over some of the more routine tasks, even decision-making or automation of the process. I think that will help them to free up manpower needed for the higher value-added work. It's not an easy task by all means, so employers do need to fundamentally relook at the work processes and where their talent are within the firm, and what can these talent deliver when they try to augment them with AI.
For employees without children, analysts say companies can consider giving other benefits.
Very progressive companies can consider flexible leave arrangements for employees that have other caregiving needs like elder care, and they can then claim those flexible leave either for the childcare, which the company can then claim from the government and fully reimburse that, but allow the employees with no children to take flexible leave to support their other caregiving needs, other dependents.
She adds that may not work for smaller firms because of costs, but as workers call for more support to meet caregiving needs, experts say businesses will have to find ways to balance support for parents with the needs of the wider workforce.
And now let's continue our conversation with Minister Indranee Rajah. She heads the National Population and Talent Division, which oversees the Marriage and Parenthood portfolio. Now, Minister, we've seen the firms already starting to adjust, but what are some trade-offs that you think employers should prepare for, even as the government expands childcare leave? And what are some responses they've given you while you've engaged with them?
Right. Well, the key trade-off is that when somebody takes time off on parental leave, that leaves a gap. And so you need to be able to fill that gap, right? So if we want our parents to feel supported, that's great, but we still have to address the issue of what happens when they go on leave. And the key here is flexibility. Most important thing to remember is that different industries and different sectors operate differently and have different needs. In nursing, for example, how you might do flexible work arrangements or how you might backstop or backfill is very different from if you're in professional services, also different from if you're in manufacturing, and different if you're doing precision engineering. So I think the first thing is that sector by sector, every sector and every company has to look at their own area and see what will work for them. Because even companies in the same sector, depending on your culture and how you've arranged your company, it will work differently. But I would say there are a few factors. One would be, now that government is paying for all of the leave, that frees up cash in hand for the employers. That gives them flexibility. One strategy is AI, as we've heard discussed, to what extent AI can supplement or help, not replace, but supplement. Second is job redesign. So before, an employee might do a job in a whole stretch of things, but now you might want to break up what the employee does so that when the employee goes on leave, you can actually parcel that out in a modular fashion. Third thing would be you could pay the employees within the firm who are covering. And that's only fair because they're doing extra work, so you remunerate them more. Another strategy might be, again, depending on sector, is that you have a floating pool from who you can draw. Because if it's a specialized type of thing, doctors have locums, for example. Lawyers can tap on friends in other law firms who do the same specialization. So you could have a ready access to a pool of floaters. And after a while, you get used to certain people who cover the temporary positions. And as and when you have a need, you're likely to go back to the same people because they've started to become part of your firm, but in a more temporary way. And then, of course, there's much more dramatic things like, entire job redesign, changing your workflows. So there's a range of strategies, and would strongly encourage firms to look at their own, have conversations with their employees. You'd be surprised. When there's a collaborative effort between employer and employees, the ideas that are tossed out can be very creative and, most importantly, meet the needs of both sides. So, yes, it's time to explore and innovate and be creative.
Yeah, flexibility is key, as you say. Now, before we go, Minister, we know that your work group's full report, that will be released next year. Can you share with us any initial findings or any teasers before the report comes out?
Not so much teasers or initial findings, but the other pieces of which are work in progress. Yesterday's announcements dealt a lot with the financial part, as you know. That's more in government's control because we can provide the financial resources for that. But the much harder part to do is changing mindsets and attitudes. So workplace norms and culture and practices is an area that we're looking at. We're also looking at support for those with fertility issues. And we haven't even yet begun to talk about education, competitiveness and stress. Minister Desmond Lee has started conversations on, education in general. And this is one of the areas that we do want to look at so that parents don't have to feel that, it's education is necessarily a stressful thing and that it can be something where both parents and child can go through our education system with reasonable equanimity. So those are some of the key things that we're looking at.
Yeah. Well, Minister, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us
Thank you for having me.
I've been speaking with Minister Indranee Rajah from the Prime Minister's office.